I almost missed Deus Ex Human Revolution entirely. I knew it existed, of course. For years, I'd seen its sequel relegated to the status of a GPU benchmark. I watched its aesthetic bleed into the wider culture, tech, fashion, even sneaker design, where NPCs wore silhouettes that looked closer to the Mason Margiela future than generic sci-fi boots. But by the time Mankind Divided launched in 2017, all I could see was a dated-looking RPG from 2011. At the time, it felt like something that had already been replaced. The irony is that I spent nearly a decade hyped for Cyberpunk 2077, from its 2013 reveal to only finally playing it in its entirety post Phantom Liberty. I fully bought into the idea that it would be the definitive Cyberpunk RPG. But playing Human Revolution now made something very uncomfortable click for me. This game had already done it. Not with scale, and certainly not with fidelity, but with intent. What shocked me wasn't just that Human Revolution held up, it's that its writing, its themes, and its grasp on the mechanics of power feel more relevant now than it did at launch. In an era where modern AAA sci-fi is louder, prettier, and somehow dumber, this deeply flawed 2011 game feels almost prophetic. On paper, Human Revolution shouldn't work anymore. It's visibly a product of its time. The piss yellow color grading is infamous, the animations can feel stiff, and the systems occasionally clash. Visually, if you don't use mods, it's easy to dismiss as dated. I almost did. But what Human Revolution understands, and what so many modern games miss, is that art direction matters infinitely more than fidelity. The aesthetic isn't just cyberpunk window dressing. It's a deliberate visual language. When I played with Rudy ENB that adds ambient occlusion, ray trace reflections, detailed shadows, and new color grading, it didn't suddenly transform into a modern game. Instead, it revealed how strong the foundation already was. Strip away the technical limitations of 2011, and you're left with a world that feels coherent, intentional, and alive. The soundtrack does the heavy lifting here. It leans into that Daft Punk, Tron Legacy era sci-fi sound, without veering into the full dubstep futurism of games like Black Ops 2. It doesn't scream the future at you, it suggests it. Tracks like the Limb Clinic theme feel genuinely timeless, the kind of music that could sit comfortably in Cyberpunk 2077 today without sounding out of place. If you told me Kiichi Okabe of Nier fame had a hand in it, I'd believe you. Then there's Adam Jensen. My first impression was essentially Solid Snake from Metal Gear Solid 4 mixed with Batman. The trench coat, the sunglasses surgically attached to his face, the gravelly voice. On the surface, he looks like a walking power fantasy. However, Jensen's depth is actually rooted in the tragedy of what was taken from him. He starts as a respected SWAT veteran turned security chief, only to have his life shattered in an instant after being thrown through a wall while trying to protect his girlfriend. His recovery is essentially a high-stakes business transaction. He's left with a life defined by debt, where his very survival is conditional. His body is now corporate property, turning him into a walking piece of intellectual capital for the same system he's forced to protect. Emotionally, Jensen is distant, but that distance works, not because it's inherently deep, but because it aligns perfectly with player choice. No matter how you play, lethal, non-lethal, stealthy, or aggressive, it still feels like something Adam Jensen would do. That's rare. While many games struggle with ludonarrative dissonance, Human Revolution accidentally achieves the opposite, ludonarrative harmony. He's not my favorite protagonist of all time, but he fits the world perfectly. The gameplay is where Human Revolution quietly embarrasses a lot of modern AAA design. I played the game like it was Call of Duty, pure clear the room energy. When I sent my clips to my friend, his response was basically, "I hate how you play games. Why don't you actually use stealth and tactics?" And he wasn't wrong. The game wants you to stealth, but here's the important part. It didn't stop me. The game supported my play style, sometimes awkwardly, sometimes imperfectly, but it supported it. Boss fights were easy for me because I leaned into raw damage and tools like the Typhoon system. The main levels clearly favor stealth, but they never fully lock you into it, and that is real player choice, not just the illusion of it. The augmentations feel purposeful too. Hacking isn't optional flavor. You miss huge swaths of the game without it. Energy management is balanced enough to force hard decisions without becoming a chore. Every augment feels like a tool you'll eventually need, rather than a gimmick you try once and forget. Compare that to modern games obsessed with yellow paint pathfinding, lobotomy marker, waypoint funnels, and morality systems that pretend to be gray while being totally non-committal. Human Revolution trusts the player more than most games released today. The boss fights are where the design cracks show the most. I only played the director's cut, and the bosses were honestly way too easy. I understand why they're controversial. They don't fully mesh with the immersive sim fantasy, but I also think the discourse around them is overblown. Metal Gear has bosses. Do they betray the tactical espionage action? The problem isn't that the bosses exist. It's just that the systems weren't designed around them as elegantly as the rest of the game. The experience just feels like a design mismatch, simply a lingering flaw in an otherwise tight game. Where Human Revolution truly shines is in its world building. Hungsha is truly stunning. Detroit only fully clicks after the riots, when Cyberpunk aesthetic stops feeling cosmetic and starts feeling earned. For a 2011 game, these hubs feel shockingly alive. You can see the DNA of Cyberpunk 2077 all over this, especially its 2013 reveal. The environmental storytelling does a lot of the quiet work. Whether it's corporate clinics, broken apartments, or the brothel in Hungsha, the atmosphere is great, but the actual substance of the writing is what really sticks. The augmentation debate in Human Revolution has only gained relevance since 2011, moving from the realm of speculative sci-fi to a rough draft of our actual reality. The game frames corporations as ideological actors, entities that shape policy, culture, and conflict. Companies like Seraph and Tai Yong make governments depend on them rather than replacing them outright, and that idea feels increasingly grounded today. Tech giants already influence healthcare, defense, infrastructure, and public discourse, turning the too big to fail ecosystem into a lived reality. Transhumanism in Deus Ex is ultimately about ownership. The flashy mechanical limbs are secondary to the questions of who controls the technology, who gets access, and what happens when your body becomes proprietary. We aren't installing Typhoon systems yet, but neural implants, AI-assisted cognition, and biometric data collection are already a part of the conversation. The power dynamics are identical in the game. They're just less visually dramatic in the real world. Even the media manipulation feels uncomfortably accurate. Picus News is a centralized propaganda machine, which feels almost quaint compared to the decentralized manipulation we deal with now. Our reality consists of algorithmic feeds, fragmented truths, and millions of micro-Pisces competing for our attention. The game correctly identified that the real battle is over narrative control rather than objective truth. Rather than lecturing you about this, Human Revolution simply shows you the world and trusts you to connect the dots, which is a rare level of confidence for a big budget title. Then there are the endings. They're weak, straight up. When Eliza popped up and presented the final choice, my immediate reaction was, this some System Shock 2-ass ending. While they don't invalidate the journey, they definitely feel like rappers. I picked the first option because I already knew it didn't matter, especially knowing where Mankind Divided goes. It's a missed opportunity, but it is a fatal flaw. Human Revolution feels like a prototype for Cyberpunk 2077, a smaller, tighter game that understood its own themes more clearly. I wish there was more of it. It almost feels like a minimum viable product for a trilogy that never got to finish its thought. People don't remember this game fondly enough. For its time, it was doing things most AAA games still avoid to this day. It is Blade Runner personified, and we barely get games like this anymore. It stands as a deeply flawed, almost classic, and maybe that's why it matters so much to me. We are in dire need of good writing and thoughtful sci-fi, not just in games, but in media as a whole. Deus Ex Human Revolution reminds me why I fell in love with the genre in the first place, and why it hurts so much that we don't have more of it.